This is a questionable reality production. Hello, I'm Xander Crowns, and this is AP Post History. Now let's get started. Today we'll be covering topic 2.6, the First Civil War. So, in the year 1097 PQS, Capistranus, the Great Salmon, died, and in tandem with his death, questions over the Samnites' national character and who should be the next leader began to rise. And really, we see these type of developments often in the death of dictators. As really, who could replace Capistranus? How could he even die? So, before the violence begins, let's run through the three main factions: the Masao Council, the Supermarket Cartel, and the revived pro-state names party. An odd bunch, but don't worry. The Masao Council existed in the days of Capistranus and was fiercely loyal to him and his teachings. They supported and propagated the contrived image of the Great Salmon. However, in the wake of his death, they needed a new legitimizing story. So this is what they came up with. Capistranus, through the aid of the Masao Council, transcended himself in order to combat the great evils that caused the salmoning. This was a very difficult task, and of course it was naturally ongoing. And so, with the Masao Council's leadership and the people's fidelity, the Masao Council could be a key ingredient to sustain the great salmon as he worked to at last end the threat of a new salmoning. The Masao Council is broadly popular with no pronounced concentration of support. Most post-historians uphold them as the true ideological successor to Capistranus. So many of you who have been keeping good, healthy notes, I hope, may have laughed off my mentioning of the reinvention of the convenience store or the supermarket as probably a tad ridiculous and largely for comedic purposes. Well, you're wrong. You see, people began to really like these rediscovered comforts and developed a strong sense of brand loyalty to them. But so when suddenly the benign information posters around the store suddenly stopped informing you of the store's values and the value of their goods, but their strong belief they ought to be the leaders of the salmon world, a subsect of the customers bought into that idea, while others merely laughed off these posters as odd and having even odder art on them. Their support was largely in urban and suburban areas, and it was primarily based in moms tired from taking care of a whole family and young college grads who liked their discounts. Though there was a great plethora and diversity of grocery department and convenience stores, they were all under the control of a large holding company by the name of Father and Daughter, or simply FD. Lastly, we come to the revived pro-state names party, or the RPSN. It is a relatively common trope for a conquered people to be sorely bitter that they are a conquered people, such as was the case for the Siaz people, who deeply hated Samnite rule and made sure all their children hated the Samnites too, because if hate dies, your potential for a uprising does too. And the Siazians found their moment upon the death of Capistranus and the sprouting uncertainty. The Siazians long focused on maintaining, if not rebuilding, the pre-apocalyptic society erased by the salmoning. Thus they contrived a campaign to end the time of the PQS and reinstate the AD years from where they left off. Their leader was President Pronounceable. The RPSN found near ubiquitous support among the Siazians, predictably, but found a strong resonance with other similarly conquered people. While their message and ideology is still important, post-historians largely cast them as merely anti-Samnite. It's important to note how quickly all this faction forming took place, and that a civil war was well underway within the days of Capistranus' death. In fact, many suggest that this civil war was an inevitability, with these factions already being largely cemented and formed by the time of his death. It's almost as if a great house of cards met an unpleasant gust of wind. The commission to find a leader, which was dominated by the Misao Council, found themselves assassinated. The FD then began to mandate membership cards to shop at their stores, while the RPSN coordinated nationwide protests. Or maybe they were riots, depending on who you ask. Militarily, the Civil War was more of a conflict between the Misao Council and the rising RPSN. The supermarket cartel busied itself with making the most profit by controlling the food supply, building loyalty via massive PR campaigns, and making its stores into basically a fortress. It was pretty crazy. And I do not want to be overly gratuitous with the Civil War, as it lasted for around 10 years and truly was mostly a bloody back and forth with no progress in between. To many, it seemed best just to split the nation up, but neither the Misao Council or the RPSN wanted to lose that much land when they could have it all. Terrorism, massacres, guerrillas, and all those other fun flavors of war were being tasted by the Samnites for this bloody decade. Multiple governments, simultaneously legitimate and illegitimate, would rise and soon be overthrown, while armies met in now romanticized battlefields to water the grass, with blood, of course. Truly a period of chaos and political unrest. Ultimately, the solution emerged in a Saturday discount special offered at an FD's Fortress store in Chinookville, which soon hosted the first peace talks and negotiations between these warring factions. A new government was to be formed, with the Samnite territory divided into several states, naturally named after the old U.S. states. Each state was tasked to elect members to a legislature, with a great salmon elected every 4 years, and the Misao Council placed itself as the sole judicial body in the land, which would never cause problems, right? The result was that the Civil War did not truly end, but instead of being warring factions, the Misao Council, the FD, and the RPSN would be deadlocked political rivals, endlessly preventing progress still. Quite the pastime. And that's it. Topic 6 of Unit 2 is complete. If you want to find success in your post-history class and visit an FD Fortress store, consider subscribing and liking this video. My goal is to see each and every one of you get a 92 in your class and a 7 on the AP exam in Quintober. Alright, Xander Crowns, checking out.